All right, so you should have set up your document and we should have 20 pages in here, but now we're going to set up the master page. What is a master page? Basically, a master page is a group of settings you want to apply to a lot of pages. It's one of the things that's built into InDesign to make the process faster. A lot of people, like if you do 200 page documents, you don't want to have to do the same settings over and over and over again. So by using a master page, you put things that you want to appear on every page or a set of pages in your document, and then you can apply them, and you can use multiple master pages. Like I've used as many as I think 13 in a document. But like when I did a catalog, I would have one master page that was a full page for a product, one master page that had 2 half pages for products, and one master page that had a quarter page for each product layout. And it would put certain default elements that I would want on those pages on every page. So for the cookbook's purposes, we need to set up a grid. We also need to add page numbers and a header or a footer, depending on what you want to do. So to access the master page, we want to go ahead up here in the pages panel at the top, double click on a master. You'll notice 2 pages because when we set up master pages, we're usually setting up both sides. So that part's good. You also, if you're ever not sure what page you're in, because sometimes when you click away, the thing doesn't stay highlighted, you can come down here to the bottom of your document and you'll see where it is. You can also click an arrow if you want to jump to a particular place. So I know I'm on the master page. I'm going to click the arrows and minimize that so that I can actually see what I'm doing. So there's a couple different ways we can do the layout, and I'm going to start with number 1, talking about doing columns. Columns are used mostly for things like magazines, but they could be used here, so it is an option for you. And this is also where you could change your margins. So let's say I decided, because my page number for my cookbook is going to go at the bottom, I just want a larger margin. And by default, yours is probably linked together. Again, one of the problems sometimes with the programs and demoing is unless I reset everything every time, it's going to hold on to whatever I did last. So with the margins, if I wanted to change them overall, I want this little thing that looks like a lock to actually look locked, and that'll change everything together. And if let's go back up. And if I only want to edit one, or I want custom, it puts a line through it. We know it's unlocked. So let's say I want to increase the bottom to 0.75. I also want to increase the inside a little bit and the outside a little bit more than that. So I just like, a little more space, basically. I'll probably also increase the top a little bit. Then I can put in columns, so I can type the number. And if you're not seeing these appear behind here, you can click preview, and that will go ahead and set up what your specifications are. We can add multiple ones, and what you can do is, let's say you pick 3 right now and you change your mind, you can come back to this master page and change this later. You also can click then to adjust layout, and the reason that's beneficial is it will then change on all of your pages. So if you've already put columns of text in, you don't have to manually go back and resize each column. It will automatically configure to whatever the new settings are. You'll also do a gutter. I like it a little bit larger than the default, but not terribly big. So if you wanted to do this, you could go ahead and click OK. I'm going to reset my columns down to 1 because I want to show you a different option. So you pick whatever settings you are interested in using for your cookbook. And keep in mind, you can always change it. I'm just right now trying to familiarize you with this, and you can go and come back to this later. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm accepting the margins, but I took away my columns. The other option you can do, which I'm kind of a fan of right now, is I can do create guides. So I'm going to choose that option, and here's how I can make a grid. I like a grid because it gives me more options for placement. The downside is it's a little harder to place text, but I could do a grid by using columns in the default column and then coming in here, but I just want to show you how to set up rows. So rows obviously go horizontally, and I'm going to say, I think 8 sounds good to me. And then I'm going to do columns. So columns look the same as they did before. This time I'm going to put in 6 columns. I like even numbers. And I'm again going to increase my gutter a little bit. And I have 2 options for fit. I can do it against the margins, which are these pink and purple lines. The margins are not the edge of your page. So we use margins to set where any copy we don't want to get accidentally cut off. Like if this was going on a really fast press, I wouldn't want like all my content to get cut off, which is a chance. Like one sheet slips and it can cause a lot of trouble. If you've ever read a magazine or a textbook, you'll see it a lot in textbooks. Sometimes you'll have like a page clearly did not get done correctly and it's sort of like all kittywampus on the page. So that's why the pink and purple are just normally we keep the important stuff within those pink and purple lines. The black are the edges of the page. So we can choose for margins to either do it against the page or with the guides against the page, but that would be a little weird because then you have these spaces. If I want to keep stuff in the margins, it wouldn't work well. So I usually use the margins for my grid. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I have my grid set up. Again, you can do whatever grid works for you. You can do columns. You can do whatever you prefer. I'm showing you options and ways to do stuff. You do not have to match me. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and use the text tool, and I'm going to draw a text box. I'm going to put my page numbers very conventionally at the bottom outside of my pages. However, page numbers are centered sometimes. They're not usually on the inside because you run into the issue depending on the size of the book, trying to make sure they don't get lost. But some people have them at the top. Sometimes you'll see them halfway here. It's up to you where you put the page numbers in. We're just going to follow this as a process. So I'm going to go ahead up here and I'm going to go to type. So I've drawn a text box. My cursor was blinking until I pressed type. So cursor, blinking, type, and I'm going to come down here to insert special character, markers, current page number. So type, insert special character, markers, current page number. And it's going to put an A in. Why an A? Because we're on the A master. It will automatically paginate correctly in the document. So on the master page, you'll see an A, or if you add another master page, a B, a C, a D, etc. But in the actual pages, it will have a number. So basically, this is a little coded item that will automatically do page numbers, which is great because that means if you move your pages around, it will still correctly paginate. You won't have to go back and change stuff. So really helpful. Again, I've done 200-page documents. Cannot explain how nice that is when I'm moving everything all the time. All right. So because this is still text, we could format it. So maybe I decide I'm just picking a font right now. Again, pick something to start with. You can always go back and change it. Page numbers are usually smaller. They're not huge. So I'm probably going to do 10 point. I can also pick colors. We'll talk about later how to add swatches. So I could pick a color. I'm just going to stick with black because I like this constant. I'm also probably going to set, so before I do that, I want to set this in a default place. I don't want it right against the margin. So what I can do is if I have my rulers on, which if your rulers are not on, Command R will turn rulers on, or Control R in a PC. And I can click on the dark part and drag down a line and decide where based on my measurements. So I want to put this at 10.5. I'm reading my nice little numbers. I'm going to get as close as I can. And then I can always select this and come up here and type a value. So this is another way you can set up guides for yourself, is to use the use the rulers and drag something. Anything that's on a master page will appear on any page applied. So I've got that in place. I use my arrow keys to tap it so it's sat nicely on the line. And now I need to put it over here. So I want to do a matching guideline because it will only do it on half the page. So it should automatically want to sort of align with that other one when I get it close to there. Now I need to copy this to the other side. I could have gone through the process of, again, drawing a text box and getting it into place, but that's not very time efficient, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and start dragging, holding Option and Shift. So Option will copy, and Shift will just hold it in alignment with the other page, so that I don't have to fuss as much to get it in the exact right spot. So I really didn't have to draw this line, but I did it just to show you, as well as I'll use it for the next step a little bit too. Obviously, I probably don't want my page number here since the other one is here, and usually page numbers are a mirror of each other. So what I'm going to do, I can just double click on that box. Notice it activates my text tool, or I could come up and press the text tool. But again, we're opting for efficiency. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and I'm going to, I could come up here and change it to be right aligned, or I can use my hand commands, which is what I usually use. Designers typically use hand commands as much as they can, because we do things so many times per day over and over and over, and hand commands is a little bit faster than coming up here to click this, or coming to paragraph to get it. So I'm going to do Command Shift and R. It's Control Shift and R on a PC, and that's going to right align. So they're basically mirrors of each other. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my footer. I'm going to decide to do a footer, but a header would work the same way. Basically, a header would either be up here or down the side here, which I can show you. So my footer here, I'm going to just pick a spot to draw, and I'm just going to call this Katie's Cookbook. Please choose better with your naming system than I am, but I didn't even name my own pets, so it's unsurprising I don't have a clever name here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose a font. Probably going to choose the same font I used before, so Gotham. I think I used medium, I don't know. And you'll notice I can choose what weight, there's book. I can choose what weight underneath. Again, there's no bold, italic, etc. button. I can choose the weights underneath here. You may not have Gotham because it's not a default. It's actually one of the university fonts, so I have those. You can choose any font you want. We'll talk more about how to add fonts, so choose whatever is on your computer. For activities, I'm only grading did you do it. And then I'm going to choose 10 point because I'm going to match this. And this time I'm going to use the Command Shift and R because I want to right align. That's going to be my footer. Your footer can be any number of things, but like the name of your cookbook's an easy thing. You could also put, like, if you're going to have sections for different types of food, maybe the section is an option, or maybe the section's a header and then the cookbook name is your footer. So I'm going to again hold Option and Shift to drag this over, aligning it again against, so it's a mirror. This time, again, I can come up here if I want to the left align, or I can do Command Shift and L, Control Shift and L on a PC, and then those are mirrors. So I could have also put this at the top. I'm just gonna copy, so I'm just using Option this time. So I could have put this at the top, whether over here, whether over here. That would be an option for a header. I also could get a little trickier, and I could rotate and have it here. So it's up to you what you want your settings to be. Don't get it too close to the edge, because again, we don't want it to get cut off. But I could position this here also. And if I did have a more complicated cookbook, maybe I would just have a section title here that could be like baked goods or bread or chicken, whatever it is. But for my purposes right now, I'm going to delete that. And then I want to come back out to my pages. I'm going to just double click here on page 1. I know I'm on page 1 because it says page 1 here. And then you're going to notice here that it has a 1 on it now. Let me just turn off my guides. To turn off the guides and the margins, command, and the semicolon allows me to turn this on or off. It's control and the semicolon on a PC so that I can see my elements. So now if I look through, I will see the page number that matches the actual page on each one of these. I will also see the grid that I've put on. So the only things that should go on master pages are this sort of like backbone structure to it. I don't want to put content in there, because if I put content on the master page, it will show up on every page. So if you start to notice you have text on every single page, it's because you accidentally put it on the master page, and you want to go back to the master page and delete that and then place it correctly on these pages. So you have now set up your grid and your master page, and you're ready to start actually putting content in place. Again, you're going to want to save the file, so Command S or Control S on a PC. When we get rid of the asterisks, we know we've saved it, and then we can go ahead and put this, you can go ahead and save this and upload this one. So even if you want to do like version 2 or something to that effect, do a save as, that's fine. I know I'm going to be getting a lot of files with the same name, but you need to submit this one just to show you've set up your grid and you're ready to go. I know you may decide to change it later, but at least I'll know you know how to do it. So that's the next step, and we're going to take it from there, and we're going to pick up in the next video and start to actually begin putting things in our file and playing with our actual file.